When the Social Network movie hit theaters in 2010, it flipped a switch in my brain. Here was a nerd in a college dorm room changing the world with code. I thought if this guy could do it, so could I. Over the past 15 years, I've wrote software for US national security, I've failed at startups, built apps that barely anyone used, worked for a hedge fund, and even dipped into unexpected industries like jewelry. And while my journey has been anything but straightforward, it has taught me this one very important lesson, a lesson that every single programmer, developer, and software engineer needs to know. But in order to understand this, we need some important context, so let's go back to where it all started. My senior year of high school is when I saw code for the first time, and I wish I could say it was because I wanted to learn programming, but honestly, I just heard it was an easy elective. The only thing I remember from this class was playing online games, and the only reason I didn't fail was because I found the final exam on the local network, memorized the multiple choice answers, and aced the test. It goes without saying, I did not learn much about coding this year. Thanks to a STEM scholarship from the National Science Foundation, I enrolled at Loyola University in Baltimore to swim competitively and study engineering, still not sure which concentration I'd choose. MATLAB was a required class for all engineers. This time I paid attention and kinda liked it, enough to declare my major as computer engineering. What did I learn? Well, the basics: functions, for loops, and variables. One day, my digital logic professor told us about his friend who gets a big fat paycheck from Apple every month for his iPhone apps. The idea of creating something that people would actually pay for was intoxicating, so I dove in headfirst. In April, I bought this iPhone coding book. In May, I joined the iPhone developer program, and by June, I released my first app to the App Store for $1.99. Looking back now, the code was a total disaster, so bad I'm almost embarrassed to talk about it, full of redundant lines and messy logic, but seeing my app live, available for anyone in the world to download, felt like I had already won. In the following months, I launched several more apps, and while they weren't revolutionary and the code didn't improve much, they collectively earned me about $6,000 over the years. The Social Network was finally released at the end of the year, and that movie made me realize just how powerful coding could be, seeing myself just like Mark Zuckerberg in my dorm room writing code and making money. With some actual Java and Android training under my belt from the semester before, I recoded my earlier apps for Android and released them to the Play Store. It was awesome to see all my hard work come to life, and this newfound confidence inspired me to tackle an even bigger challenge: my first development competition, where I made this stock trading app. Not only did I win a few $1,000s in prize money, but I also received an offer for a summer internship. Initially, I considered moving to Charlotte for the role, but ultimately chose to intern at a big aerospace company in Baltimore in order to stay closer to my family and friends. However, my internship bored me out of my mind, so I took it upon myself to learn VHDL and create this unbeatable tic-tac-toe game in just 372 lines of code. This was inspired by these other unbeatable tic-tac-toe games that we had to create for two of my engineering classes that year. I was quickly falling in love with programming, and so I loaded up on as many computer science courses as I could, and one of the two most important classes I ever took was CS 456 Web Programming. In this class, I created an awesome Snake game in JavaScript, but more importantly, this was my first introduction to how websites work, and also my first time using SSH, both fundamental technologies for developing something great on the internet. Inspired by Zuckerberg's infamous hack of Harvard student profile pictures, I too wrote my own 30 lines of Java code to do something very similar for my college. But unlike him, I didn't get caught. Some of my favorite video games like Sonic and Roller Coaster Tycoon are true classics, especially when you compare them to my latest school project. You guessed it, yet another unbeatable tic-tac-toe game for my 400 level math class. But these simple games and apps were just the beginning for me and opened the door to freelancing, which was a significant step forward for me. As seniors in college, my friend and I got hired to develop 2 cross-platform mobile games to promote frozen meat products. We wrote the first game in ActionScript and called it Runaway Meatball Man, where you chase a humanized meatball down the road. We each earned $625 for this quirky project. The second game we created was called Vampire Problem Steak-'em, and this time we used the Unity game engine and primarily coded it in JavaScript. Once again, we each earned $625 for our efforts. In addition to freelancing, I was wrapping up my engineering senior design project, which was this rotating braille display controlled by an Arduino, which not only solidified my coding skills, but also sparked my interest in hobby electronics. Despite applying to literally every big tech company at the time, after graduation I decided to stay close to home and took a full-time position where I interned with a starting salary of $67,000, and that fall I began my graduate studies in computer science at Johns Hopkins University. Ultimately, this year taught me that every project, no matter how small, can lead to greater opportunity. 2013 marked a critical year in my coding journey. Looking back now, it's hard to believe I went this long without using any type of software version control or databases. At my job, I was suddenly exposed to various systems like Subversion, Perforce, and ClearCase, but it was only Git that truly clicked for me. I became so proficient that I ended up teaching a 2-day course on Git at work, which was probably the first time for me teaching technical knowledge. And just when I thought my career was taking off, a shocking twist threatened my job. One day, the system admin pulled me into her office and asked me if there was anything I wanted to tell her. I said no, and she said simply, tic-tac-toe. I was immediately embarrassed for getting caught coding a command line game at work and braced myself for the worst, thinking that I was about to get fired. But that wasn't even the worst part. She went on to explain that my C code had crashed the entire classified network due to my poor memory management and misuse of pointers. Miraculously, I did not get fired, but that solidified my preference for higher level programming languages where you do not have to manage memory yourself. I would later go on to redeem myself with my best version of tic-tac-toe in my Foundations of Algorithms class, where I wrote these 906 lines of Java code that incorporated multiple strategies including brute force, recursion, min-max, and alpha-beta pruning. However, the most important lesson that year came from an entirely different grad school course, CS 441, Principles of Database Systems. Here I learned about relational databases and SQL, skills that, as you're about to find out, would prove essential throughout the rest of my coding career. In 2014, my passion for coding began to intertwine with my fascination for robotics and electronics. The spring semester at Hopkins kicked off with a robotics class where I created this Mechanim Wheels robot simulator in JavaScript and this obstacle-avoidant robot that used an ultrasonic sensor to detect its surroundings. A highlight of the fall semester was my software development for real-time systems class, where we built quadcopters powered by an Arduino and a BeagleBone Black, which was controlled by a PlayStation 3 controller. The code was primarily written in C++ with some Python and shell scripts too. While our drone didn't soar as high as I hoped, it was inspiring to see others fly quite nicely. Throughout my aerospace career, I applied these hobby electronics skills as a volunteer mentor for local high school students, helping them build various types of autonomous vehicles. At the time, little did I know that this rewarding passion for helping others would evolve in unexpected ways, but not before I encountered a roller coaster of unexpected career challenges and setbacks. I graduated at Hopkins with my CS master's degree, and after seeing this job ad on Stack Overflow, I jumped at the chance to earn a 6-figure salary as a mobile app developer. This was my dream job to make apps, and the best part was I could wear shorts and my fuck you flip-flops to work. But just 1 month in, my boss called me into his office to deliver the gut-wrenching news that I wasn't cut out for the job. That moment pretty much shattered my confidence in mobile app development, and I pretty much never opened Android Studio or Xcode again. During the weeks of unemployment that followed, I hustled through a bunch of interviews in New York and Seattle, but ultimately I again chose to stay close to family and friends in Baltimore, taking a software engineering job at a hedge fund with a starting salary of $91,000. Let me tell you, this was seriously the best job with massive perks like parties, an on-site gym, gifts and swag, parties, annual bonuses, and even some pretty crazy parties. Is this the right fucking company or what? I was living the finance bro life as a software engineer, but there was a catch. I was back to coding in MATLAB again. You see, over the years I had developed a preference for higher level programming languages, but not too high, with a strong preference for Python, which in particular would soon prove to be very, very useful. When they announced at work that we'd be transitioning our MATLAB code base to Python, I was excited, but I had no idea this change would spark the idea for my own startup. I quickly fell in love with Python, especially when I realized how effortless it was to display data from a database on a web page. All my years of coding experience converged and reignited my drive to build something impactful. And so this was the start of many months of late nights and long weekends dedicated to coding
The Diamond App, a website where you can view price history and get a good deal on your diamond ring.
To get my site online, I hosted it with the Shared Unlimited plan by DreamHost, which was my go-to web host since 2014, and an excellent choice considering how large my database eventually grew. The website functioned by running daily cron jobs to download and store the inventory of multiple online jewelers into a local database, generating price history charts for millions of diamonds. This process resulted in a massive MySQL database with billions of data points. It was mostly written in Python with 3,300 lines of code, utilizing the Django web framework. DreamHost is perfect for both small personal projects, like my first website back in the day, and large websites like the Diamond app because they offer unlimited storage, bandwidth, and databases, all features that are helpful in getting your ideas online. All my hard work paid off the moment my website earned its first income. How was that possible then? Well, I had signed up as an affiliate partner with online jewelers, agreeing that for every sale I drove from thediamondapp.com to their website, I'd earn a commission. Traffic to the site was slow until I was featured on the Side Hustle School podcast in May.
So today's story illustrates it really well. It's about a software engineer who encounters the world of jewelry and take what he's good at and combine it with something that he's learning about to create a profitable side hustle.
After the episode, I saw a spike in sales, but then things trailed off again. In reality, the easy part was building the website. The hard part was spreading the word about it. I might have just built the next Facebook, but it's literally useless if nobody uses it. So during my 45-minute commute to work, I soaked up as much knowledge as I could about entrepreneurship and affiliate marketing from podcasts by Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas, and Brandon Gailey. Podcasts naturally led me to audiobooks, and after listening to the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, my dream of online success grew even stronger. To drive traffic to my website, I hired a ghostwriter for my blog, grew an Instagram account to over 10,000 followers, and spent thousands of dollars on Google and Facebook ads. Unfortunately, none of these strategies really seemed to pay off. I was still earning commissions, but barely enough to cover the cost of running the website, which I had prematurely moved over to an expensive dedicated server, and was eventually losing money each month. By the end of the year, I was grappling with more than just dwindling sales. My health and my relationships were also taking a hit. Long hours at the computer had caused persistent pain in my right shoulder and back. After countless doctor visits and trying various remedies, a nerve conduction study diagnosed me with Parsonage-Turner syndrome. My doctor advised me to take some time off of work, and that's exactly what I did. Instead of sitting at home feeling sorry for myself, for the first time ever, I left the comforts of home and bought myself a one-way ticket overseas. I spent 2 weeks soaking in the sights of Italy, followed by 5 weeks wandering around India. With just one backpack and no laptop, it was a refreshing break from coding. I was focused solely on travel and exploration. When I returned from my trip, my body felt much better. However, once I was back at work, sitting at my desk all day quickly brought back symptoms, not as bad as before, but they still lingered. Deep down, I knew that it was only a matter of time before I would quit my job. So in anticipation of that, I decided to hedge my bets with a blog and a vlog. For the blog, I used DreamHost to set up a personal website at tonyflorida.com, and inspired by creators like Casey Neistat and Lost LeBlanc, I started a daily vlog to document my journey, hoping that these projects would lead to a new source of income. My first vlog came out on July 10th, and I quit my job less than a month later on August 3rd. A few weeks later, I flew to Bermuda to work on a freelance software project for a research vessel where my friend worked. I used Python and Django to create a web app for tracking deployments over the side of the ship. It was 1,600 lines of code, and I earned $6,000 for it. That freelance project, which only lasted a few months, caused the same shoulder and back pain to return. So at that point, I knew I needed to prioritize my health again. So I made the tough decision and didn't write a single line of code for quite some time. I continued to document my travels on YouTube, and as time went on, the need to make money grew even more pressing. But despite this, I invested $500 in the Blog Millionaire Signature course, which in retrospect turned out to be one of the best investments I've ever made, because this course taught me how to optimize my blog to show up in search results. So rather than blogging about literally everything under the sun on my personal website, I once again took advantage of my DreamHost Unlimited plan to set up multiple topic-specific blogs, each under their own domain name, covering everything from cereal to swimming and beer to travel. But perhaps the most pivotal moment during this time was that I was confident I could teach web development and SEO better than this course that I paid hundreds of dollars for. So despite my desperation for an income, I decided to share all my technical knowledge on the internet for free. I created a series of tutorial videos on my vlog channel, presenting these topics from my perspective as a software engineer. I continued to hedge my bets and return to travel blogging and the typical backpacker lifestyle, meeting people from all over the world and enjoying friendships that often came and went. But it wasn't until the end of the year that I realized that some of the best performing videos on my channel were my tech tutorials, even the cringeworthy Python ones that I'd uploaded years prior. And that's when it hit me. I miss coding, but more importantly, I understood that making a positive impact didn't mean I had to build the next Facebook. The solution was right in front of me. I could use the reach of YouTube to share my knowledge through free technical tutorials, and that's exactly what I did. The channel you're watching right now started with 0 subscribers at the beginning of 2020 when I re-uploaded those first tutorial videos here. Living in my parents' house at the age of 30, I released the first official Tony Teaches Tech video on January 13th. I then flew to the digital nomad paradise of Bali, Indonesia, where I could live cheaply and join a co-working space to focus on my channel. I pumped out a bunch of videos over the next few weeks, but then this happened.
Right now, we suggest to all the American citizens in Indonesia to leave this country, go back to US.
I returned to the US, but I refused to let something even as big as the pandemic stop me from making this work. Between January and May, I released 64 website tutorials, and while the channel was growing, there was one big problem. I was practically out of money. So reluctantly, I left my family again and took a job across the country in Tucson, Arizona as a systems engineer, starting with a salary of $115,000. I quickly fell back into my old habits of dedicating every waking moment outside of work to creating daily tutorial videos for my channel. By the end of the year, I had close to 4,000 subscribers, 230 videos on my channel, and finally started seeing financial returns from my efforts, proving to myself that helping others by freely sharing valuable knowledge can lead to truly fulfilling success. My job was pretty cushy and I didn't receive many coding assignments, but that was perfectly fine by me because it gave me the freedom to dive into projects of my own, like this short domain name search engine that I coded with 1,200 lines of Python code, and a WordPress website detector that took only 348 lines. But as an introvert, far away from home in a new city during a pandemic, I found myself seeking distractions from my loneliness, so I channeled all of my energy into my YouTube channel, and my efforts truly paid off. To my delight, my YouTube channel earned me even more than it had the previous year, and this growth gave me the confidence I needed to take my next leap of faith. Just a month into the year, I quit my job in Tucson to go full-time on YouTube and set off on an RV road trip across the United States and Canada with my best friends. During this year-long adventure, I dedicated myself to growing my YouTube channel while striving to balance hard work with unforgettable experiences. While I truly cherished the moments spent exploring these stunning landscapes, a nagging sense of dissatisfaction lingered. Despite the growing success of my channel and the companionship of my best friend, I found myself yearning for something more, a connection I couldn't quite identify at the time. Closer to the end of the year, I felt a pull to revisit the digital nomad lifestyle that had been disrupted by the pandemic, and so I wrapped up my road trip convinced that new adventures would bring the fulfillment that I was missing. I bought myself yet another one-way ticket overseas, and after a few months of traveling through Singapore and Malaysia, I eventually made it to the Lost Creator House in Bali, a co-living space where I met a bunch of like-minded online creators. It was a fantastic experience, but it quickly turned to a very low point when I fell ill and ended up in the hospital for a week. I truly felt lost and wanted to go home, but I had already committed to a trip in Nepal with my friend from the road trip, so I pushed through and ended up having an incredible time. After that adventure, I returned home to the US and focused on finishing out the year with weekly video uploads. But just as things seemed to stabilize, my channel hit a significant hurdle. YouTube penalized me for invalid traffic, slashing my ad revenue, which had become a crucial source of income for me, and as a result, the livelihood of my YouTube channel was in jeopardy. 2024 kicked off and I released a few videos I had prepared, but shortly after, I decided to hit pause on publishing. This break provided me with ample time to reflect on my journey over the past 15 years. Years of dedicated to writing probably hundreds of thousands of lines of code and pursuing online success. During this time, I thought back not only to how much that movie in 2010 influenced my path, but also about broader societal norms regarding success. Looking back to what I set out to achieve 15 years ago, I realized that while I successfully built a YouTube channel that provides value to many people, I had neglected something far more important along the way. My focus had been so narrow, locked in the glow of a screen, that I overlooked the richness of real-life connections. In my pursuit of greatness, I let my relationships wither, and this led to a lack of nurturing friendships and a sense of isolation. The truth is, my world had revolved around the space between my eyes and the computer screen, but we all know that quality life experiences happen away from the keyboard. Looking around, I see people immersed in their devices. Couples at dinner, colleagues at work, and you right now watching this video. It made me realize how easily we can become lost in this digital world, missing out on what truly matters. So after 15 years of coding and chasing success, I realized this one very important lesson. It's crucial to strike a balance between your work and your relationships. It's not about how many lines of code you write or how much money you make. Your purpose does matter, but it should never come at the expense of your health. And in the end, it's the quality connections that you have with your family and friends that are arguably the most important things that you'll ever have. I'm so grateful that I came to this conclusion when I did, because there was a time last year when I almost quit YouTube for an entirely different reason, something that I think most online creators struggle with. If you want to learn what led me to that breaking point, check out this video next.